After the car accident happened, Jade's mother rushed to the scene after hearing the news and was almost in tears. Even Jade's stepfather was extremely angry. Both families arrived, except for Pak's mom. Pak quickly sensed something was wrong. The police received information that the surveillance footage from the scene did not capture the image of the presidential candidate's wife leaving. The only possible route for her to leave was the back door, but the surveillance footage from the back door was live and not automatically saved. Pak suddenly suspected Pak's mom had provided some kind of help to her biological son. He rushed back home and tried to retrieve the footage from Pak's mom's car recorder, only to find that the memory card had been removed. Faced with his suspicion, Pak's mom showed an almost illogical calmness. Pak's mom said that ever since her son was taken by father-in-law and was said to have drowned while playing in the water, she had tasted the pain of heartbreak. For 20 years, she had cried all the tears she could. Now, she wanted Pak to feel her sorrow and pushed Pak's doubts about his so-called mother to the maximum. The police were still unable to locate Jade. As time passed, her chances of survival became increasingly slim. Worse still, because this incident involved the sensitive identity of a presidential candidate, the higher authorities were unwilling to offend the candidate. Despite Pak's mom having clear major suspicions, they still refused to issue an arrest warrant. To calm the situation, the presidential candidate held a press conference, falsely declaring that he had only just learned his son was still alive. They adopted Pak because they were so heartbroken after losing their son. A journalist familiar with Pak couldn't stand their facade of peace. The presidential candidate shamelessly claimed that it wasn't a threat, but that their biological son had become mentally unstable after falling into the water. The journalist, who was close to Pak, suddenly stood up in anger and refuted this. The evidence was irrefutable. The car recorder had clearly captured a conversation where the presidential candidate's biological son threatened Jade. Furthermore, the journalist had an interview recording with an accomplice. The secretary, who was already in prison, had confessed everything. The reason he first noticed the presidential candidate's biological son was because, during an event, the son attempted to attack Pak. Pak was very popular and beloved by the public, so when the secretary saw someone who hated Pak as much as he did, he became interested. He closely watched this person and discovered that he had returned to the old orphanage, the site of a series of missing persons cases, which was the abandoned villa. This made the secretary even more certain that this person, like him, was a family member of a victim from the previous missing persons case. However, he didn't expect that the person returning to the scene wasn't just a victim's relative, but possibly the murderer who had never been caught. The secretary privately contacted him and asked why he hated Pak. The person told him a story, saying that after seeing the presidential grandson's appearance, the president took him to a fishing spot and tried to drown him. As a result, he became mentally disabled and lived in a daze for a long time. Only recently did he regain his clarity, remembered everything, and now wanted to seek revenge by destroying the Pak family that ruined his life. The testimony from the secretary, the accomplice, caused an uproar in the entire conference room. The presidential candidate on stage could only weakly defend himself, but as soon as he finished speaking, a group of police officers rushed in and arrested Pak's mom on charges of murder. Surprisingly, after being taken into custody, Pak's mom remained very calm. She even turned the tables and threatened the officers, asking if they were ready to quit their jobs. She asked whether they have found the body. Without evidence, how can they say I killed someone? That's slander. The officers in Pak had actually already guessed Pak's mom's mindset. However, they were confident in arresting her because they had a stronger card to play. The officers showed Pak's mom a video, which captured the final moments of the former president, Pak's mom's father-in-law. In the footage, Pak's mom was seen smothering her father-in-law to death. This was the trump card Pak had. He knew that the former president's ring had a hidden camera. When the president was on his deathbed, he had given the ring to Pak, but Pak felt it wasn't the right time, so he gave it back to his father. Once the former president passed away, Pak accessed the hidden footage from the camera and obtained irrefutable evidence, a trump card that he had kept quiet about for years. The evidence was irrefutable, and Pak's mom was certain to go to prison. Pak tried to persuade her to confess in exchange for a reduced sentence, but Pak's mom retorted, asking why Pak believed Jade was still alive. Pak gave a firm answer. Pak's mom would definitely spare Jade's life. He was sure of it because, after the incident, Pak's mom had said she wanted Pak to taste the pain she had once experienced. So what kind of pain had Pak's mom experienced over the years? It was the pain of losing her only son to drowning, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. In the beginning, she was on edge, and whenever a body was recovered, she would run barefoot to confirm if it was her son. After 20 years, she had almost lost hope, but suddenly, she saw her son alive. However, even though her son was alive, she had forever lost the chance to spend the best years with him. Pak was certain that Pak's mom would keep Jade alive, but only to make her suffer the same torment and pain she had. Pak's mom looked at him in silence, and in that moment, though they weren't biologically mother and son, they shared an unspoken understanding, as if they were two peas in a pod. Suddenly, the officers rushed in with good news for Pak. They had found Jade. They traced her location through Pak's mom's phone. However, what they didn't know was that Pak's mom had already made preparations. She had instructed her subordinates that, if she were arrested, they were to kill Jade. But the subordinate, who had served the Pak family for many years and had watched Pak grow up, always felt pity for Jade. In the final moments, he showed mercy and let Jade escape. As for Pak's mom's biological son in the other room, the subordinate chose to lock the door with an extra lock and secure it. At that moment, Pak's dad suddenly arrived with a gun. It turned out that, during the press conference, he had noticed the exchanged glances between Pak's mom and the subordinate, suspecting something was amiss. He secretly followed the subordinate and tracked them to this location. However, what he didn't expect was that the presidential candidate wasn't his opponent's son at all. After a gunshot rang out, this ruthless father was killed by the very beast he had raised. Jade stumbled down the mountain, but halfway down, she heard a voice calling from above, like a death sentence, "Sister, play with me." With a determined heart, she ran toward the car coming up the mountain road, hoping to seek help, but to her shock, the person getting out of the car was Pak. But their car hadn't gone far when the real Pak blocked their way. At times like this, they shouldn't have stopped the car, they should have floored the accelerator and driven right through. But they chose to stop. The real Pak demanded that Pak get out of the car, and to everyone's surprise, he obediently got out. At this point, Pak still hoped to talk things through and thought the situation would pass. However, the kidnapper wasn't interested in talking. The real Pak lowered his gun and said something to Pak. In an instant, Pak's face turned ashen. Finally, the police arrived and surrounded the two of them. The real Pak looked at Pak with satisfaction, seeing his dejected expression, and pulled the trigger. With the sound of a gunshot, everything was over. Some time passed, and everyone's life returned to normal. But some still lived in the shadows, like Jade. Since that night, Pak had left her, and she was once again living in an empty house, alone. Until one day, a call came from an overseas number. She had a strange premonition and immediately answered the phone, excitedly asking if it was Pak on the other end. But the person on the other end just remained silent. Jade watched helplessly as Pak was shot, and she completely broke down. The one who pulled the trigger was the real son of the Bai family. He paid the price for his crimes and was shot dead on the spot. Although Pak's mom, as an accomplice, survived, she was sentenced to life imprisonment due to the irrefutable evidence. Having lost her son, Pak's mom no longer wanted to live. She appealed, requesting that her sentence be changed to the death penalty. The subordinate who followed Pak's mom's orders received a reduced sentence of only 5 years due to Jade's plea. Pak's nominal father, after being shot, was injured but received timely medical treatment and survived. As a presidential candidate, he was forced to publicly repent and apologize in the media. Despite all his efforts, he only received 3% of the votes and suffered a humiliating defeat in the election. He failed to continue his family's legacy of success. The farce was finally over. Jade survived, but she never saw Pak again. After the shooting, she was emotionally overwhelmed and passed out, needing hospital treatment. Pak also received timely medical care. However, after recovering, Pak donated all the inheritance he had received and disappeared without a trace. In her search for him, Jade specifically visited the prison to see the secretary, asking if he had any clues. The secretary said that Pak had once mentioned that after everything was over, he only wanted to be with the person he loved. But now that Pak was missing, it was clear something unexpected must have happened. This was of little help to Jade. and she left the prison full of confusion. On her way out, she happened to run into one of Pak's former subordinates. The subordinate told Jade that Pak had once asked him for advice on how to manage a married relationship. This revelation made Jade realize that Pak had also made awkward efforts to save their relationship. On this day, during the holiday, Jade's father wanted to eat fried pork cutlets, so Jade took him to a pork cutlet restaurant. The staff recognized them and mentioned they had been there before. It was then that Jade realized it was Pak who had always brought her father to the restaurant privately in the past. It was another Christmas. Jade's sister wanted to take her out to spend the day together, but Jade refused. She always felt that Pak could return at any moment. During the days when she was kidnapped and treated, she vaguely remembered seeing Pak by her bedside. But her sister firmly told her that Pak wouldn't come back. She tried to make Jade forget about Pak, not wanting her sister to stay immersed in the past and continue suffering. But Jade couldn't just move on from it. No matter how many times Jade called Pak, it was always a disconnected number. But one day, she suddenly received an international call from an unknown number. When she answered, the person on the other end didn't say a word. Jade checked and found that the area code was from the war-torn country, Allegan. Not long after, Jade received an international registered letter. Inside was a thank you letter from a school in Allegan, expressing gratitude for a 2 billion Korean won donation to the school. Jade was even more certain of her guess. This money wasn't donated by her, it was definitely Pak who had donated it. This meant Pak was in Allegan, and he had visited the region years ago when he worked as a war correspondent. Now that she had confirmed Pak's location, Jade immediately decided to go to him, even though Allegan was still in the middle of a war. Everyone around her warned her not to go because it was too dangerous. But Jade wouldn't listen. She bravely ventured into the war zone alone. As soon as she entered, she was captured by rebel forces. Fortunately, on the way to where she and other foreign hostages were being transported, a mysterious person attacked the rebel convoy and successfully rescued them. Don't ask me why this mysterious person was so brave, daring to single-handedly raid a battlefield. I don't know. Maybe the scriptwriter just loves these kinds of scenarios, where the female lead is always kidnapped and the male lead always comes to the rescue. Even if it's not in Korea, once she leaves the country, she has to be taken hostage. This not-so-mysterious person took the time to untie all the other hostages and remove their blindfolds, but for some reason, he didn't remove Jade's. Instead, he placed her in the front passenger seat of his car. Jade had already guessed that this person was Pak, so she didn't resist. The rebels, however, relentlessly pursued Pak's damaged vehicle. After a not-so-intense chase through the jungle, Pak finally found a place to stop the car. The rebels, like they had light bulbs hanging from their heads, completely failed to notice the two of them, even though a car passed by just a few meters away. Don't ask me where the other hostages went, I don't know. Anyway, even though the rebels were still lingering nearby, the two of them finally had a chance to be alone. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and Jade was definitely fired up. She missed Pak so much. Pak didn't understand how Jade could say such things when she knew everything. Jade, in turn, didn't understand why. After hearing whatever Pak had said before he left without a word or any explanation. It turns out, the real Pak hadn't said much back then. He only told Jade one truth: Pak's dad had killed her brother. Pak originally wanted to shield Jade from the storm, but he eventually realized that all the storms in Jade's life were caused by him. The former president wanted to replace his grandson with his illegitimate son, so he needed to eliminate Jade. Her brother, who had seen the face of his real grandson, was killed to silence him. This led to the car accident during which Jade's brother died. Jade's mother, losing her real son, was left with no choice but to silence Jade, telling her to pretend to be mute and not steal the spotlight from the eldest daughter of the Hong family. Pak visited Jade's brother's grave and learned from Jade's sister that Jade knew everything but still loved him. This made Pak feel even more guilty. He left without a word, traveling to a foreign country to punish himself. Jade didn't care about that. She went straight ahead and kissed him, and that act ignited something in Pak. They kissed each other passionately. After a long night, they woke up together in bed the next morning, holding each other. They watched the sunset together. Pak's place was the perfect spot to enjoy the sunset. His phone was filled with pictures of sunsets. He loved sunsets because they reminded him of Jade. Pak explained the 20 billion donation he made. Jade was surprised, and Pak quickly clarified. He did it because he wanted to abandon the name that wasn't his and take on a new name, one that truly belonged to him, so he could marry Jade. This was his way of fulfilling his previous promise to propose to her again. The two spent some more happy time together, with the sound of the waves around them. After an unknown amount of time, they finally returned to Korea. Pak changed his name to Pak Forever Love, and from that moment on, love was the only thing in his life. He divorced Jade using his old name and married her again with his new name. They moved out of their old house and into a smaller but happier new home. All their friends came to congratulate them. Jade shared the good news with her mother. After everything that had happened, her mother came to terms with it. She realized that no amount of wealth and status mattered more than her daughter's smile. As long as Jade was happy, that was all that mattered. Jade's sister once again sincerely apologized for her past indifference to Jade's pain. Jade fully reconciled with her sister. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs established the Foreign Nationals Protection and Countermeasure Department, and Pak Forever Love joined the department as a negotiation expert, returning to the public eye. Jade continued to sweetly call him every day. One day, Jade gave him an order to come home immediately.